Welcome to What Matters Most. I'm Brian Caplinger, not your traditional host. Typically, you hear the voice of the lovely Fawn Ellerbrook. My voice is not quite as lovely, but I am here today with a few guests as we're going to continue our conversation in the Beatitudes, which is found in Matthew chapter 5. And on the last episode, there was just great conversation around what it means to hunger and thirst after righteousness. And so on this episode, we're going to really dive into the Beatitude, Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. And with me today is some great guests. I'm looking forward to hearing their chatter and their conversation around this. So why don't we take a moment and just introduce ourselves?
Well, hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Mary Stoinski, and I live in St. Charles. I've been going to Faith Community now. I think it's going on 4 years, maybe. And I've got 4 adult daughters, and I'm Mimi to 2 super cute grandbabies.
They are super cute.
They are so cute. I'm biased, but I think they're really cute.
They are super cute. I'm Wanita Foster. I am on staff here at Faith Community Church. And one of my roles here at the church is I am the care coordinator, which is why I was invited to be part of this podcast. And in that role, I'm just making sure people are receiving care and support. Some of those areas of ministries, not all of them. But my most important job is a wife. I'm a mom of 2, a grandmom of 6. And they are the best thing that's ever happened to me.
And you're affectionately known as the Love Lady, even though you
call Miss
don't
Wanita
really
the
like
Church
that.
Love Lady.
Oh, that's right, because she does such a wonderful job of just loving on people, regardless if they are consistent at church, new to the church, or just pop in because they're looking for some help or support in some manner. And so she's usually that first face. And so one more, Tabitha, go for it.
Hi, I'm Tab. If you've listened to the podcast before, then you've probably heard me a bunch of times, but I'm one of the teaching pastors here. I get to lead our young adults. And since everybody else is sharing their stuff, I'm married to Brian, who is our substitute host today.
Right.
And we have 2 beautiful daughters who are also sassy, but I like that about them. They get that from me.
There's no doubt about that.
No.
So we'll say
They get
that.
a little
I
bit
am
of it
not
from you.
sassy on any level.
A little bit.
I don't think I am, but that's for another podcast, not today.
We won't argue about that.
No, so I'm excited. Again, today's topic, just kind of focusing around Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. And the Beatitude series has been great, and I hope you've had an opportunity to listen to some. I'm excited to hear your thoughts, but I'm going to ask Tabitha, if you would, just kind of set it up for us as you've been doing for each of the podcasts a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Because as always, we want to define some terms and make sure that we're looking at things in context. And I feel like I can never remember from one episode to the next what I said to remind everybody. So I feel like every episode I might be reminding all the same things, or I might be reminding new things. But if you listen to all of them, you'll catch all the things. But the Beatitudes are found in the Sermon on the Mount, which is a collection of Jesus's teaching in Matthew 5, 6, and 7. And really, one of the things we've talked about as we've talked about the Beatitudes, as Jesus is teaching us the foundation of what it is to be a citizen of his kingdom, that this is what it looks like. And each one of the Beatitudes starts with this word blessed, which in its simplest form means happy, but it's so much more than happy. It's about a spiritual blessedness. It's about spiritual geography, that you're standing in the right place. So you're blessed are the poor in spirit. You're standing in the right place when you're poor in spirit. You're standing in the right place when you're standing in the right place when you are merciful, for you will receive mercy. And one interesting thing I thought about as we have gone through the Beatitudes, a note of context to kind of keep in mind with these next few episodes, is the first 3 Beatitudes, as one commentary put it, describe the emptiness of a blessed person. But then in the last episode, we talked about, like, we're emptying ourselves out with the first 3, and then we hunger and thirst after righteousness. So we're going to start filling ourselves back up with the next Beatitudes, the next 3, starting with this one today. And so I think that that's an interesting way to put it is that these are how righteousness abounds in the heart of the hungry through mercy, purity, peacemaking. And to talk about mercy and what it means to be merciful, desiring God, I think it's .com. It might be .org, but
one of those.
It's one of those two. Right. You go look it up. This is how they define it. And I thought it was really good, and I can't say it better myself. So it says the answer to the first question is that mercy comes from a heart that has first felt its spiritual bankruptcy, which is to be poor in spirit. The heart has come to grieve its sin and has learned to wait meekly for the timing of the Lord. So those were our first 3 Beatitudes. And to cry out in hunger for the work of God's mercy to satisfy us with the righteousness we need. Mercy comes from mercy. Our mercy to each other comes from God's mercy to us. The key to becoming a merciful person is to become a broken person. You get the power to show mercy from the real feeling in your heart that you owe everything you have to sheer divine mercy. And so that idea of mercy, which to be merciful, and we can all talk about this in the biblical context, to be merciful is to show forgiveness and compassion to those in need. So maybe we can start the conversation off by, what is it to show forgiveness and compassion? What do those words mean to you guys, forgiveness and compassion? Go for it.
That's right. Don't be scared to jump in.
I wanted just to add to what you had to say.
Absolutely.
In addition to the compassion, and I just can only relate it to the things that I do. It's also showing sympathy, as simple as showing kindness. And I've just found over time, the more we allow ourselves to open up to those things, the more we become aware of the need. And the need is so great within the church. And showing mercy is so easy. I simplify everything. I am a simple-minded person. And just to put it simply, being kind to people, having an open ear as we are trying to be merciful because God has shown us mercy. How can we not?
Yeah.
How can we just not be merciful to others in the area of need? And that's my area that I'm focusing on, and it just happens. And so it's been quite a journey over the years to see how God has opened doors for us to extend mercy to so many people, not just in the church, mostly in the church, yes, but also beyond our walls, which has been is quite humbling.
Yeah.
And quite an honor to be a part of this, to come alongside someone and see their needs, see their tears, just see what we can do for that, and to offer a touch, one touch. We can't do everything. We know that, but to offer a touch, let them know they're seen, let them know they're being heard. We have not forgotten them, and that is very challenging sometimes in a larger church, but still quite an honor.
Yeah. I love that because you said to let them know that they're seen. Just a touch. Isn't that the heart of compassion? That people just need to know that they're seen.
That's right.
And that they're loved right where they are. I think we like to make it more complicated than that. I love that you simplify it. Just show kindness. Because we want to make it forgiveness and we want to make compassion so much more complicated sometimes, I think, because then we think we can get out of doing it if it's more complicated. But it's not. It's just making people feel seen. Let them know that they're seen.
And really all it takes is a small sacrifice of time. I believe that's the cost. And it is something that we should all be involved in doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love Wanita, how you said, I simplify it. Because I was thinking about that earlier today in the context of even forgiveness and compassion, which I feel like really do go hand in hand. And I think so many times, we can we can look and say, like, oh, I can't believe somebody would do this. You know, when we see somebody fall into sin or have a failing or whatever, to say, well, I can't believe. And I think the reality is, coming from a place of brokenness and emptiness, we're all one heartbeat away from the same thing ourselves.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, so I think it's recognizing our profound need for a savior. You know, we're one vulnerable choice away from a failing. We're one decision away from crisis. And so really knowing we're all in the same boat of really needing the mercy and grace of God.
Yes.
That's so good. And I think it goes back to these Beatitudes being tied together, a lot like the fruit of the Spirit. They're one fruit. It's not like you don't just work on each one individually, like you're checking off a list. They are one fruit cultivated by God in our lives. And I think the Beatitudes thread together in the same way. And, you know, Jesus starts with blessed are the poor in spirit, because if we don't understand how poor in spirit we are, how spiritually impoverished we are, if we don't understand our need for him, then we struggle with the other things along the way. We struggle to mourn sin. We struggle to remain meek and gentle as we navigate the world. We struggle to hunger and thirst because we don't think that we need anything. But then we struggle with mercy, like you said, because we forget that we're broken too, that we're poor too. And so offering that to other people comes from that place of remembering that and having the same compassion that Jesus has for us and not forgetting that. And it, like I said, it sounds so complicated, but it really is just quite simple. It's quite simple. And to be able to offer that compassion. And I love that you use the word, Wanita, kindness. And what I thought about when you said that, because I think sometimes we struggle with kindness maybe in our culture a little bit because we confuse being kind with being nice. And they're not the same thing. Like nice is being polite, but kindness is truth that isn't always comfortable, but it's born out of that compassion and love. Whereas nice is, I don't really care if it's helpful. I'm just trying to be polite. I just don't want to hurt your feelings. You know what I mean? Like maybe someone else has a better way to explain it if you think about it for a minute. But like I think about that and I think that, but kindness is a fruit of the Spirit, and it's not just about being polite. It's not just about trying to not hurt someone's feelings, though we shouldn't be trying to hurt people's feelings. But kindness sometimes might hurt our feelings because maybe our feelings need to be hurt because our feelings are lying to us. That's not the intent of kindness. The intent and the motivation is compassion. And I think mercy comes in that way, that it's kindness that wants to meet us right where we are, but doesn't want to leave us there. Niceness will give us a pat on the back and a little hug and is fine to leave us where we are, as long as we were nice, as long as we weren't mean. Whereas kindness says it's not enough to just not be mean. I want to pick you up. And I think when I think about the story of the Good Samaritan, that it wasn't enough to just meet him on the road and bind his wounds. He picked him up and he put him on his donkey and he brought him somewhere safe where he could recuperate and heal. And and that was so kind. Like it wasn't just a nice, hey, hope you're doing all right. Hey, I'm praying for you. Like as he walked by, but he stopped and he saw him, like you said, where he was, and he let him know that he was seen and that he was cared about. And he took care of him from a place born of compassion, someone he didn't know, someone he shouldn't have wanted to care for on the outside. But he saw someone who was in need. And I think, and like that kindness and that compassion led to greater action, if that makes sense. Now I'm rambling. Wanita was worried she was going to ramble, but I ramble. So
I think that's a perfect picture. The Good Samaritan's a perfect picture of the ultimate going above and beyond kindness too. And maybe we can't do that all the time, but I find myself surprised that people are surprised when we are reaching out to them. That's kind of sad when you really stop and think about it I mean, they're just, at times lost for words, but genuinely moved by the smallest amount of kindness shown to them. It's just been the one thing I guess I don't ever get used to that either. It's like that's a sad world that we live in. So glad that we can do something.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think a lot of that too comes from we've conditioned ourselves to be ready for judgment. And when you talk about, mercy and then forgiveness and compassion, for me, I always go to that notion of, and I know it didn't originate with Ted Lasso, but that's where I remember it from, in the sense where he makes the statement, be curious, not judgmental. And I think, what you're talking about, Wanita, is a lot of people come in expecting to be judged for their misgivings, their missteps, or the choices that they've made in life, sometimes by their own problems and own, just consequences from those choices. Sometimes it's just been laid upon them by others in their family, and they struggle with that. And I think, for us, the real challenge, and I say us, I think for the Christian faith at large, for just people in general, is to get past that, because it's really, really easy to judge, because I think then we can separate ourselves from them, whereas this beatitude really puts us on the same playing field with everybody else. We like to look at the notion and go, well, at least I'm not there. But when you start to really dive into having to show mercy and forgiveness, you have to reconcile the fact, like you've all said at some point, that I needed that forgiveness. I needed that compassion. And I think you have to start internally thinking about maybe some areas within yourself that you're still not quite there, and you still need that compassion, that mercy, and that forgiveness.
Absolutely. Well, and I think, when we think about like showing mercy, I don't know, this is the image that pops in my head. We get the image of like this king or this ruler who's like extending their I like to the poor, lowly little, person. And so I think when sometimes we can have the notion that if I'm the person extending mercy, that I'm above because because you need this from me. And again, reminding ourselves that the only reason as Christ followers that we are in a position to extend mercy to others is because we have received it from Christ. Like the Beatitude says, you're blessed when you are merciful because you will receive mercy. And it says you will receive mercy, but we've already received it. Like we've already received the mercy. And so we're not above. And we're not like the only reason we're in that place. And so not looking down on people and not waiting for people to somehow earn mercy from us. And I think some of that too comes from, and you guys can chime in, but I think and I'll say, because we're in America and I don't really know a lot about all the other countries and cultures. I've lived in this one my whole life, right? But we're very much a pull yourself up by the bootstraps, like I can do it. Culture, and that's not always bad, that kind of independence and self-reliance, but the enemy twists anything good. And so sometimes a self-reliance and an independent spirit can be good, but the enemy then twists it to go, well, you shouldn't need help because you should just be able to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. So one, we don't ask for help when we need it. We don't look for that. And I think that's part of why we get startled when people show it. But then also, then it puts us in this position of we look at other people who are struggling, who are suffering with whatever the case may be. And we go, well, if they just worked as hard as I do, if they just made better choices, if they just pulled themselves up, if I could do it, they could do it. And it's like, but I didn't do it. And you didn't do it. It is the grace of God in our lives. And that doesn't belittle working hard. And I'm not trying to say there aren't consequences to our choices that we should face because those consequences help us grow. I'm not saying don't have boundaries or use wisdom in how to show mercy. Otherwise, Lisa Turkhurst wrote a book called Good Boundaries and Goodbyes. And I was watching a video of her talk about this because she was talking about codependency. And she said codependency is compassion that went too far. And so we need wisdom. We need wisdom from God, from the Holy Spirit to lead us, but we don't get out of compassion and kindness and mercy just because we think that, well, if they'd have just done like I did, then, because I don't need mercy, but we do. What we do.
One thing I hear a lot, and it kind of goes back to a couple of statements ago that you had made, is that we will contact someone because basically we do not know what we do not know.
Yeah.
So once we are made aware of a need in a specific area, I will reach out. It's not always the individual coming to us as a church, and I will reach out to them, and I hear over and over again that it's kind of that pull up your bootstraps thought.
Yeah.
It's like someone needs it worse than I do. We will graciously decline because someone else needs it worse than us, and I'm going to push through because I believe all needs need to be met, or if we can, the needs can be met, and that still speaks volumes when we're able to do that.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that mindset is that people have. They just are slow to always want to accept an extension of care that we would love to be able to give them.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic because I'm about done. I'm really close to ending Reconnected, the book by Carlos Whitaker.
So good.
Yeah, it's a really good book. If you haven't read it, I'd encourage you to go out and get it.
It has nothing to do with being merciful.
No,
but
it
it's
doesn't.
Okay.
But what the part is where I'm at is he's living with the Amish right now, and he's talking about the sense of community that they have because they choose, not because they feel like there's inherent evil with certain electronics or anything of that magnitude, but they feel like it robs them of the community. And a lot of times for them, it is more so driven to keep community so that they can show mercy and grace and be compassionate and living with one another, in the right sense. And I think sometimes, they get it right a little bit more than we do, because it's so easy, to your point, to get kind of segregated or separated to the sense of, well, it's just me. I've got to figure this out, that we can't rely on other people, or we feel ashamed. I think there's a sense of shame that comes in to say, hey, I need mercy. I need that compassion. I need forgiveness. Because I'm trying to think, and I try and make a practice of this often, because when you talk about being merciful, it's to show forgiveness and compassion to those in need. And it's like, I have a hard time just asking for forgiveness, much less offering that at times. And so learning, and the only way to really learn that is to be in community with people where they get to see you sometimes not at your best.
Yeah. Mary, as we were talking about that, I was thinking, because you work with dementia patients and their caregivers. And I know my dad has some early dementia symptoms, and my mom is his caregiver. She was also my sister's caregiver through health. And she is one of those that has a hard time asking for help and accepting help. And I just wonder, because of where you are in that ministry and what you do with that, your kind of take on that and what you see as far as the struggle we have sometimes to accept help and mercy, and why that is, and maybe how that impacts how we offer that to others.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, Wanita, you hit the nail on the head of people are so surprised, when we offer practical help. And I think part of it, specifically to your question of dementia and caregivers, I think sometimes people are so overwhelmed. It's such a challenging thing as a caregiver too, because a lot of caregivers, they're still have kids at home, or they've got kids in college. Either way, they've got this family that they've kind of brought into the world, and then they have these parents that are going through this, and they're typically still working and navigating all of that. And I think that level of stress, sometimes we feel like we're drowning. And many times, we'll say to folks, let me know how I can help. And we're very, very well-meaning.
Absolutely.
But I think sometimes coming alongside someone in a practical sense and saying, can I drop off some groceries?
Yeah.
Can I do XYZ, something specific? But I think it's also a huge opportunity for the church, not just Faith Community, but the church in general. When we're in a society and culture that's so surprised when they're shown the least bit of kindness, my goodness, what a huge field of
Absolutely.
opportunity. Like Wanita said, it's not complicated. It's really, really simple. And I was thinking too, the last few months actually, about senior care and the church in general. And the verse just kept coming to mind over and over again. Honor your father and your mother. Honor your father and your mother. And it's a commandment to us as believers. So think, how can we step in, really explore ways? How can we step in and help fill a really big, challenging gap?
I love that. And I love thinking about it that way in relation to like senior care and things that we're to honor our father and mother. And one way to do that is like through showing mercy, which is so compassionate. I think sometimes we get frustrated and that leads. But I also like what you said about practical, that people are overwhelmed. And I think, and so instead of saying, if you need help, let me know, or let me know what I can do, to say, can I do this, and be more specific. And what crossed my mind, and maybe this is the part of me that gets a little cynical and I'm trying hard, but I think sometimes as believers who are trying to show mercy, because that's what Jesus is calling us to do, is to show mercy, to be merciful. Like this should be an active part of our walk with the Lord. Is I think sometimes we say things like that. Well, I'm praying for you. Will you just let me know if you need anything? And sometimes how often, like, we are very well-intentioned, but is that a little bit of a cop-out that we're not more specific? Because then, well, I said if they need anything to let me know, and then they didn't let me know, so I'm off the hook. I did my part. Well, I'm praying, so I did my part. And hear me, not all of us. Sometimes if praying's all that we can do, that is huge. And so I don't belittle that in any way. And I'm just as guilty of this. I literally just had someone text me today, and I'm like, well, if you need to talk, if you need anything, because I'm like, I don't know what to say. I don't want to push. I don't want to assume. So sometimes I think there are very well-intentioned things behind that start out like, I don't know what to be specific. And maybe we can talk about that in a second, like ideas about specificity in mercy. But that how often, like, we're very well-intentioned and we don't know, but then on the flip side, because the enemy twists things, that becomes the excuse to not do, to not reach out and be more specific, because it kind of we can cop out and say, well, I offered to help and they didn't tell me, and maybe part of us knew, or maybe we didn't know, but if we just said, hey, I know that you're going through whatever, can I make you a meal? Or can I buy you a meal? Or, hey, can I come help clean your house? That they might actually say yes. And then.
No, that's good. Yeah. And let me pose this question, because we're talking about the compassion side, which I think is huge when it comes to mercy, but there's also a forgiveness side to this. Because remember, merciful is really to show forgiveness and compassion. And so when we talk about forgiveness, obviously we're really kind of the framework is letting go of grudges and seeking to forgive others just as God has forgiven us. And so talk about that for a minute, like the idea, your thoughts on how forgiveness plays out into being merciful. I know, posed a big question there.
It's a real big one. Well, I think if we're going to talk about forgiveness, we have to, again, define some terms. I think sometimes forgiveness is really hard because we think that forgiveness equals acceptance of something that has happened. Like we're saying, what if I say I forgive someone, then I'm saying what they did was okay. And that's not true. Sometimes we think that forgiving them means freeing them from the consequences of their actions. And that's not forgiveness, because God is also just. And so there should be justice for wrongs done. But forgiveness is really just saying that what you did, I will no longer allow to have the same impact, that it's not going to get to keep hurting me. It's not going to keep causing me harm. I'm going to let go of the offense. I'm going to let go of the hurt. And ultimately, I think what forgiveness from us is saying is that I'm going to put the justice in God's hands, which again, depending on the situation, that doesn't mean we don't pursue justice.
Right.
You know, if someone has broken a law or hurt you in that kind of, like, by all means, we are going to pursue legal justice here in this world. Forgiveness doesn't mean people get off the hook from that. But in my heart, I'm putting it in God's hands. And I think the other side of that is we think if we forgive people, then we automatically are reconciling. And sometimes forgiveness does not equal reconciliation. I think we should always attempt reconciliation. But I think there are some cases, like cases of abuse, where reconciliation of a relationship is not healthy. But that doesn't mean forgiveness isn't still necessary. Because reconciliation takes both people doing the work to heal a relationship and make it healthy. Forgiveness is me. Forgiveness is what I'm doing, and it doesn't matter what you do. And so I think we have to kind of have at least a little bit of understanding of forgiveness in that regard. And I think in that, it makes the forgiveness part, the mercy. And we say, but they don't deserve it. Yeah, but we didn't either when God forgave us. And I'm not forgiving them because they deserve it. I'm forgiving them. I'm showing mercy in that aspect because I don't want that hurt to turn to a root of bitterness in my life that keeps hurting me. And then in turn, I hurt others because I'm hurting. And so I think we're showing mercy in that way. To keep our own hearts and spirits pure before the Lord.
That's good. That's good.
And I, interestingly enough, I have just yesterday actually had come to terms with an area in my life and an individual in my life that I knew I needed to forgive and chose not to. And I, even being in the church, as long as I've been in the church, I just found it very hard to let go of the hurt. And just yesterday, I was talking to the Lord as I was getting ready for church, and I verbally said it out loud. I prayed for this individual, and I prayed that the individual would find happiness. And I said some things to God that I couldn't have said 2 weeks ago or a week ago. And I am anxious. I haven't done it yet, but I am anxious to find the opportunity to let them know.
Yeah.
And because there's just been hurt on both sides. Of course, I think, my hurt was justified, of course. But I believe that once I do that, it will be a great, I guess, I'm trying to think how to put it. I believe God will be glorified in it, I guess.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it will be a testimony to them because maybe remind them of maybe where they're to search their own heart and find out where they're at with God, and even hopefully don't want to get back in the same boat with them, but will definitely have to encounter being together at times. And I don't want there to be anything of my doings that would cause there to be more awkwardness in the situation. So it
goes to, you can't control anyone else. You can only control you.
Right.
And doing what the Lord asks of you, and then you put it in his hands. And what they do with it is on them. But I love how you said that, you said you chose not to. And it made me think too, sometimes forgiveness is not going to be an emotion you feel. It's a choice that you make. And the other part of that is sometimes forgiveness is a choice that we have to make every single day toward that person before we will feel it, before it has fully, we're constantly trying to let it go, but before it will completely let go of us. But that's the process, I think, of healing, in those moments. And so those were added bonus thoughts about forgiveness that I thought of while you were talking to Miss Wanita, because I feel like someone, maybe if you're listening and you struggle with forgiveness, maybe you've had some bad theology around forgiveness or wrong expectations of forgiveness, and thinking that, oh, well, I forgive them and then it's just over. But no, you may have to forgive them every day for a while you heal, while God heals that thing in you. But that forgiveness is obedience from him to him. And so we choose to obey in that regard. And
how much more merciful can you really get?
Yeah.
Yeah, to be able to, and I know in not all cases can you let someone know that, I was, and this is what I'm hoping to be able to do is just to let this individual know, I prayed for you today, and my prayer was that you find happiness in your life, and some things that I believe that they need to hear. And I believe that shows great mercy. I'm hoping that it does.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that is the result of that.
Well, and I think as you're talking, I think when we say, blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy, it's the continuing mercy that we receive. I feel like that process of forgiveness, man, it does something in our heart to make us more and more like Jesus, and positions us more and more, I think, to receive that mercy from him. Because I think it takes more mercy from him to be able to offer more to other people when we're hurt in those moments. But yeah, I think that's kind of the cycle of being merciful and receiving mercy, is the more I pour out, well, God, I'm hurt. And if I got what I wanted, trust me, Tab would be real petty without the Holy Spirit, okay, and real vengeful. Like I'm little and I'm petite, but I'm sassy. My husband's giving me an eye right now because he knows. And but when we offer forgiveness and we offer mercy in those moments, I think it just pours out more of that stuff in us that needs to be poured out to make room for more of him, and he is glorified in it. The other person may not respond the way that you want. They may not see the glory of the Lord in it. You're not responsible for how they respond, but someone somewhere is going to see the glory of God in our attitudes and in our forgiveness. And I think that makes it so worthwhile, even when it's really difficult and uncomfortable and even painful at times, to let ourselves be poured out in that way.
Yeah, it's really, really good. And I want to get back to the idea of what mercy looks like, practically day to day. We did kind of talk about it a little bit, Wanita. You mentioned like kindness on that side, but even more than that, and maybe we can start here with Mary just to give you an opportunity to share some thoughts. But what does it look like to be, forgiving, compassion, obviously mercy? How do you express that on a day-to-day basis? Maybe in your career path, maybe it's just at home.
Yeah. And I think it's, back to what Wanita said, it's really, really simple. I think it's finding, if anybody grew up going to church camp, which I did, my dad was a pastor, both my parents were pastors actually, and sometimes you go to church camp and youth group and you're pursuing something big. God, show me what my big thing is. Am I called to be a pastor? Am I called to be this and that? And I think really ministry and care in a practical way is finding a need that tugs at your heart and meeting that need.
That's good.
In a practical sense. I was when I very first started in a memory care setting, my role wasn't specified, and it was kind of, create your role, which can be super awkward if you're somebody that likes a checklist. Like I love a checklist. And I remember day 3, I'm walking into work and I said, God, I just don't even know what I'm supposed to be doing. I just don't even know what I'm supposed to be doing. And I went in to help with care, and before I walked in the room, it was a gentleman. He was probably 6'4", this amazing, honorable guy who had an accident. He had soiled himself. And I'm behind the door, and the staff member was saying to him, "You smell so bad. You make me want to throw up. You did it." And she left the room, and I walked in and was just moved by compassion for this person. And I said, "It's not your fault. it's going to be okay. We'll get you cleaned up. Everything's okay. And he stopped crying and he let me. And I felt like God said in that moment, this is what I've called you to do.
Yeah.
Just show love. Like, wake up in the morning and show love. So I think it's finding, not everybody's called to senior ministry. Not everybody's called to children, to work with children, or all these needs that are around us every day. But I think it's finding the thing that breaks your heart.
Yeah.
And going, how can I help in a practical sense? How can I get in and help with this?
That's good.
And I don't even think you need to think about it intentionally on a day-to-day basis. It just happens.
Yeah.
Is making yourself available and knowing that we want to be as Christ-like as possible. We're made in His image, and when the need is there, then we can step in and meet a need, or show kindness, or show forgiveness, or any of those things. It just happens. It's not planned. It just happens.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And I keep going back to this, and maybe it's just because it's where I'm at the moment. But the idea of just, being aware, like it really doesn't take that much. But at the same time, it's very difficult in the world in which we live to just stop and take in what's around you. I mean, and I'm no different than anybody else. It's so easy to get consumed by my day-to-day and my tablet and my phone and everything that's before me, that I almost blindly walk around and I miss the needs that are present, that I think sometimes God is orchestrating to be around, because maybe I am the person that can practically meet that need. As simply as sometimes it's just showing mercy by there's someone struggling to get something off the top shelf in the grocery store. And it's like, instead of making a big deal or just passing by, it's reaching up, grabbing the item, and setting it down with no expectation in return. It's just really offering that kind of help. But, we're so consumed by me a lot, or not even maybe us, but just the things in front of us, our day to day, that it's easy to just bypass the needs that are present. And so I love, what you're both saying. And the practical side of things is, one, the first step would just be to just live life, but be aware. Maybe, keep your phone in your pocket when you're walking through the grocery store every so often. I mean, obviously you can't ignore the phone calls from your kids unless you really want to, but, it might be good to answer it, those type of things, or just, going on these walks and moments where that's not the focal point. You're actually trying to engage with people and look people in the eye, because sometimes just that mere presence can be enough. I can go back years ago, and this is just stuck with me for, I really don't know what other reason, but going into a restaurant, and I took the time to hold the door for a lady, and as she was passing me by, the only statement she said was, "Oh, look, there are still gentlemen in the world." And it's like a simple act like that sometimes is so merciful and gracious, because not because I'm anything special, but maybe what it reminds the other person of their value, their worth, and that, like you said at the very beginning, Wanita, that they're seen.
Well, and I think, I think sometimes as Christ followers, we look at things like mercy as something to check off as a religious duty, right? Something I can check off to feel better about myself, or to get a tax write-off at the end of the year. And like you said, Wanita, it should be a posture of our heart. It should be an outpouring of Christ in us, that fruit of the Spirit coming out of it. I really feel like mercy in a lot of ways is the fruit of the Spirit being really practical and hands-on. How do we take the fruit? Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. How do we take the fruit and we put hands and feet to it? And that really is mercy and compassion and that outpouring. And it can be simple things, like you said, like just paying attention to the people around you. And when someone has a need, helping them, like small, I think, sometimes there are these, like, it can be this like thing where people are like showing small acts of kindness, and the radio station does it and all of that stuff. And we're like, oh, that's fun for a minute. And we kind of almost devalue and belittle that. But but I really think those small acts of kindness, yes, if there are big things that, like you were saying, Mary, that God has put on our heart and made us really tender to, then certainly there can be big things that we do as part of that. But I think even just the small things, paying attention to the person who needs help in the grocery line because they are trying to put their stuff on the, counter while they've got kids crying, or they're older and struggling. We were in Walgreens one day and the older gentleman was struggling with putting in his phone number for his Walgreens points, and he didn't understand what the cashier was saying, and he was getting really frustrated because he felt like he was holding up the line, and without the Walgreens points, the thing he was trying to get wasn't the price he thought that it was. And I just was like, sir, you just have to, just stopping. And it was so, and like for a moment, it's really awkward because I'm like, I don't know this guy and I don't know what he's going to think. But it's like, no, like I'm just going to show, like I can show kindness for a moment. And here, this is what he's asking for you to do. Like, do you need help? I can punch it in for you. Do you not have, and just taking that time. And something that popped in my mind that, Brian, you used to do a lot, and I thought about one time, is one thing that we used to do, not so much anymore, but when we would go to a restaurant, and our waiter would come and take our order, we would just say that we're going to pray over our meal and ask them if there's anything we could pray for them for. And if they were like, no, thank you, we moved on with our life. It's not a big deal. And the number of times, we were in a Cracker Barrel with a woman crying while we're praying because she had gotten a cancer diagnosis. Mm-hmm. And that, it's a moment of compassion. Someone, like you said, Wanita, they feel seen. Mm-hmm. Someone saw her as more than just a waitress in that moment and prayed for her. And those little things, helping the person at Walgreens. I could have just gotten frustrated because it's taking my time. Now I'm sitting here because you don't, and how often do we let our own, like you said, Brian, our own rush, what's in front of us, what we need to accomplish in a day, keep us from moments where we could choose to be merciful, to be patient, to be kind, to put the fruit of the Spirit on display in little ways. And I think that when we do it in little ways, God will provide more opportunity for the big ways. And they'll
those
be more
little ways are huge.
They're huge. They're so huge. And we act like it doesn't, well, it's not a big deal. Well, maybe it wasn't a big deal to us, but it was a big deal to that waitress in the Cracker Barrel. One time in line at somewhere, I don't even remember where, but it was a drive-through line. The person in front of me paid for my coffee. That was a big deal. That small act of kindness for, at the time, especially we were poor, starving youth pastors rubbing pennies together. And someone paid for that. That's a huge, that was a huge blessing and a huge moment of compassion. And sometimes we don't even know what those moments mean for the other person. And even in the moment, they might act embarrassed or frustrated, and not be, I think too, well, they weren't, I was just trying to be nice. And they're embarrassed in a moment too, or they don't know how to, like we've said, they don't know how to respond to it, but then they go home later and they're like, man, mm-hmm. that really meant something. And it sows those seeds. It plants and waters the gospel. It plants and
memorable.
waters.
It's memorable. Yeah. I wanted to add one thing though, just to tell on myself. I find that, and I fall short plenty as it relates to maybe seeing a need. But I also find that I fall short with my family. So it is easier for me to be compassionate and forgiving and merciful to others. Yeah. And I forget to extend that to my own family sometimes. And that's something that I have to remain conscious about. And again, fall short a lot, but that has to be part of the mix here, that we have to remember our families need to be extended that same forgiveness, that same mercy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's really good. And we're talking about these, and I think it's been interwoven in and out. But in your opinions, what do you think really stops us overall from being merciful and showing that on a consistent basis? I know, again, we've talked a little bit about just the busyness, but what are other things that kind of create that gap? Wanita, you mentioned family. You don't have to deep dive. This is not a counseling session. But again, even when you hear that word, I don't know about you guys, like I love the word being merciful, but there seems like there's this extreme weight that comes with that. And I don't think that's the intent of Scripture by any means, but just for us, it just feels a little daunting at times. And what do you think keeps us, again, from really being merciful?
Busyness. I think it's the busyness, and just day to day, and that's it for me. I just become overwhelmed with my own stuff, and I find it more difficult to be merciful at night.
Poured out all the mercy you have from 9 to 5, and then
so if you hit me up at night, there's less to give.
I feel that in my spirit.
If you want to hit Wanita, go early. She's an early to rise
for sure.
No.
Well, and I think too that emotional energy is finite. You know what I mean? I think like our capacity, our tank, it's finite, and I think to show mercy in a practical way, to take time to see people, like all the things that you guys were talking about, really in our society today has to be a deliberate choice.
That's really
because
good.
to do all of those things, we need to be with people, and I wonder so many times it's becoming more and more designed for us to not be together, and so it's almost kind of resisting temptation to spend that finite emotional energy on social media debates or, all the things that really just aren't going to do anything. And I've often found with myself, because it can be like this delicious looking bait to I'm going to hop on and, say all these things. But it's saying, I'm going to make the choice to take this energy and go do the next right thing and practically help somebody. And it's amazing how what it does inside of you, the peace, like when you're extending mercy to somebody that's wronged you and you're praying for God to bless somebody that's wronged you, or you go and help your neighbor, what it does inside of you, it's a peace that all that other stuff isn't going to bring. So I think it's an intentional choice to go against the grain, to go against all of that. And I am going to choose to instead walk in this direction and do this thing.
I think that's good. Because doesn't the enemy just love it when we're distracted? And doesn't he just love it when he can get us to expend our energy on something other than what God has called us to do? Or when he makes us think that we've expended our energy for God when we missed it. And we're just we think that if we post something on the internet, we've done something real great for the kingdom. And Jesus is like, but I told you to go love your neighbor. I don't need you to post a quote that you think is gonna clap back, or I don't need your hot take. I need you to love your neighbor. I need you to love me and love your neighbor, and I need you to do it practically. I need you to go to your actual neighbor, to actual human people, and show mercy and expending our energy that way. And in order to do that too, I thought one thing, like you said, because we all only have so much. We're not built to carry the weight of everything happening in the world. We can care about all the pain. We can care about all the different events, but we are not built to carry all of them. We don't have that capacity. We are not even built with the capacity to know and have all the information that we have on a daily basis. And so I think one thing that stops us is we run out of compassion because we're trying to carry and things that aren't ours. But also I think because we pour ourselves out for the wrong things, and we never let ourselves get filled back up with Jesus.
I was going to say to me that's one of the catalysts too, is make sure you're spending time receiving the mercy from God. Like, you've got to position yourself in a place that you're getting him in order to have that energy, because he is a gracious God that will redirect us and really show us where we are maybe missing giving mercy and giving that forgiveness and compassion, and he will direct us to the place that we need to be at. But it's, again, going back to your point, it's intentional. We have to choose it. We have to want it. We have to, really want to be there. And a little bit of a shameless plug, I think a great way to start in this process is small groups. Find a group to get connected with, whether that's here within the church dynamic as a whole or wherever you are connected with. Sometimes it's just being intentional about connecting with your neighborhood. It's really, really easy to not want to go to like the, cul-de-sac parties and, all the fun stuff that's going on. And I'm not saying you have to do it all the time, but find ways to get to know the people that live around you. I mean, I'm pretty fortunate. The closest neighbor to me I see fairly consistently because I work with them. And so it makes it easy. But I was thinking about this today in preparation for this, like how many other of my neighbors that are a couple doors down or maybe across the street have I really taken the time to just get to know in that capacity to where maybe they are just looking for some mercy, some compassion, and to be seen as what we've said. And I'm neglecting that because I'm just not taking 5 minutes. Because again, we're not talking about spending a whole day. I mean, now if God asks you to do that, cool, go for it. But sometimes it's just going across the street to say, hey, I realized I've never introduced myself. I just want to say, hi, this is who I am. And it may be, like you've all said, it may be super awkward, but I'd much rather live in a 5-minute awkward moment than continue to be years down the road awkward when I see them outside working on their yard and I'm just walking outside to put the trash can up.
Yeah.
So I want to know if I can share a fun little story.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've lived in our neighborhood for quite some time, and our neighborhood is very small. There are 9 homes, and we used to know all of our neighbors, and we do to some degree know all of our neighbors, but we have tried to be neighborly to the degree we can, and mostly Gary more than me, and doing things like plowing our lane because he had a little tractor and a plow. And now time has passed and years has passed, and some of the things we used to be able to do, we can no longer do them because of our mobility. And now we feel like we are receiving mercy, receiving some care that we did not even ask for. And I think the sweetest thing that has most recently happened is our driveway is a complete decline. I mean, steep enough that if it gets bad, we don't go out. And our neighbor right across the street who has 4 little children just texted us and told us, they said, if you will pull your trash cans just out of your garage, my son wants to take your trash can up the drive for as long as we can do that for you. And he does. And he missed it actually last week. And Mama made him come over and apologize. But we have now received mercy. We have received kindness, and it feels really good.
I love that. I love that.
It's a great way to kind of just bring a little bit of culmination to this. And so I would just ask this, and maybe I'm putting you on the spot, and that's okay. But just some final thoughts on this idea of the Beatitude. Again, it is in Matthew. It's Matthew 7. It says, "Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy." What would be your final thoughts as we kind of bring this to a close?
My final thought is pretty simple, is that I know that God has been merciful to me, and I just feel that that's all I can do for others is to show mercy. He took me from a dark place, and he still allows me to be used by him. It's humbling, and that's all I have.
That's good.
Love it.
Yeah. I echo that. God took me from a very dark place too. And what other choice do we have other than to show mercy because we've been shown so much? And I think being a place as a person, as a church, as a community where people are safe to come.
Yeah.
You know, when they failed, and say we're really saying, how can I be a safe place for people to come, and how can I just live out the love of God in these practical ways? Because I think of the verse, they'll know we're Christ followers by our love. It's so simple. They'll know Christ followers by our love. So how can we do that? And if every person said, I'm going to choose to love, you know, that my faith isn't going to be some sort of, you know, statement of this or that. It's just going to be love. My gosh, what a change in the world there could be.
Amen.
Hey, it's Fawn. I'm jumping on to wrap up this episode, and what a powerful statement to end on. If each of us could recognize our own need for mercy first and let that lead us to love and care for others, what a change that could make in the world around us. As always, if you've enjoyed this episode, we would love for you to leave us a review and share it with a friend. To learn more about Faith Community, you can visit our website at faithcommunity.co or get in touch on social media. And don't let your study of the Beatitudes stop here. There are so many resources available to you that can help take your scripture beyond the page and begin to understand what it's actually saying. Things like the Blue Letter Bible and the Bible Project are great places to start. Again, thank you so much for listening and learning alongside us here on the podcast. We'll see you next time as we continue to discover what matters most.